Welcome back to Iacon, everyone. Today we are talking about Fire on the Mountain, an episode of Transformers where they go to a different country and aren't completely racially insensitive. Arguably a little, but not completely. It starts with Brawn and Trailbreaker cruising in the ATL, shooting the shit about having wheels and stuff. The action begins when they happen upon Starscream and Thundercracker, who are on their way to steal... Yeah, not that steel. Though if they were to destroy the master print of that movie, I don't know anyone who would complain, but not that steel. Thundercracker says that this steel is inferior, but Starscream doesn't mind because Megatron says that his brain is inferior, so he thinks that it means he's a stable genius. But the two Autobots show up to crash the party, but the problem is, they suck, so their counterattack is thwarted almost immediately. So with this steel, the Decepticons build a shell for a powerful laser weapon. Their plan is to harness the Crystal of Power in a temple in Peru, where legends say a great power source resides. Yes, that's what Megatron is resorting to, following an old Peruvian legend to gather Energon. Jeez, Megatron. So now you're strapped for ideas, and so you're going to rely on old Earth myths? Fortunately for the plot, this particular legend happens to be true. I guess if this one doesn't work out, they can just plug their super laser weapon into the Sasquatch and harness the static electricity from his fur. Back at the Autobot base, Optimus is wondering what Megatron could be wanting with all that steel. I mean, he could really be anything. But they come up with a bright idea to send up a satellite and find Megatron that way. I mean, that'd be great if their base wasn't, underwater and well beyond satellite's view, but fortunately, that's not where the Decepticons are, so this time it works. So, there you go. The Autobots see Megatron on top of a temple in Peru, so at least they know where they are. Laserbeak somehow knows that they're being spied on from space, so he tells Megatron, who harnesses the power from the temple and blasts the satellite into pieces. Wow, great shot. Considering he can't even shoot Autobots 10 feet away half the time, he sure nailed this one. He must have been just nicely drunk. Hopefully Sandra Bullock isn't up there making repairs because, well, we all know where that story goes. Too late though, the Autobots know he's in Peru and that's way too far to get there by land, so they'll need someone to fly them there. Fortunately, the North Pole is just a short jaunt away, and there's already a team of Wheeljack and Sideswipe digging up Skyfire. So when he first got buried by the snow, why didn't they think of digging him up then?
Here lies Skyfire, a dear friend that we've known for 15 minutes. He sacrificed so much so that we could...
Hey Prime, why don't we just dig him out of there?
Don't you ever interrupt me again.
Anyway, without so much as even a briefing, Skyfire agrees to go on the mission and loads Brawn and Windcharger to intercept the Decepticons. The blast from the Mega Cannon caused the steel to melt, the very steel that Thundercracker told Starscream wasn't going to hold up. So naturally, Starscream blames Thundercracker for not insisting that Starscream was too dumb to make any decisions, and Megatron really can't dispute that. Thundercracker really should have known better, so Megatron pushes him off the temple. And he puts them both on guard duty, and even assigns Skywarp to babysit them, who relishes in mocking them. Megs takes his other troops to find better quality steel to make the blaster casing, and luckily there is a town nearby so they can just go raid that. As the Decepticons are flying, Skyfire arrives and drops Brawn and Windcharger right into the lap of the Decepticons, and they start a fight. They insist that they'll be fine and can take on Megatron, only to discover very quickly that they will absolutely not be fine, and cannot take on Megatron, and will be killed in no short order. I mean, these guys are tiny comparatively, and they're trying to take on the Decepticon elite. They run and jump back into Skyfire, rendering this entire scene pointless. Well, not entirely. I mean, if you want to see two Autobots eat their own words and have their egos crumble in just a short few minutes, here you go. But from a story perspective, it doesn't do much. And it does make me wonder whose dumb plan this was. Sending your smallest and weakest boss to fight with Megatron and his soldiers is a good way to thin out your team. Or, you know what, maybe that was Optimus' intent.
I swear to the Matrix, if Brawn doesn't smarten up, I'll send him on a suicide mission.
Hey Optimus, I was thinking of setting up Netflix on Teletran 1.
Hey, I've got a better idea for you, Brawn.
Brawn is all for this suicide mission and doesn't have any idea when he's in over his head. I guess that's why he's not named Brains. Regardless, they determine that they'll need to ship the whole cast down for one of those epic showdowns that the kids love so much. So they go all the way back to the Ark, and Skyfire quadruples in size so that he can fit in most of the Autobots. But seriously, I know he's supposed to be big, but since when is he big enough to fit in everyone? Hey, maybe Skyfire is a TARDIS.
Back to Iacon will return after these messages. We now return to Back to Iacon.
So Megs and his cronies go to the town and raid the local factory when more Autobots show up. It turns out that in the time it took Megatron to get to the town and start his raid, Skyfire flew back up to Oregon, picked up the whole Autobot team, and flew right back down to Peru just in time to interrupt. Man, Skyfire really can do everything today. I guess the only thing he can't do is, break free of ice on his own? In a very fun moment, Prime drives right through a wall and just nails Megatron, sending him flying right through another wall. Then Brawn picks up Megatron's cannon and blasts him right in the chest. Laserbeak grabs the gun back and passes it to Megatron, and he blasts Brawn, who runs and hides because he might just be starting to clue into the notion that he's completely outclassed. In the battle, a tower is knocked down and starts to fall toward a girl. Spike and Bumblebee swoop in and save her, and she starts dumping all this exposition on them before just taking them to the secret entrance to the temple. Skyfire, while all this was going on, flies to the temple to do stuff there and comes across Thundercracker. Skywarp got summoned by Megatron to help out, leaving Starscream and Thundercracker to bicker and whine together. Thundercracker decides to not stop Skyfire so that he can ruin their plan and make Starscream look bad. Or rather, that geeky Starscream. Yes, he actually just calls him geeky. This is why Thundercracker was not invited to Shockwave's roast last Thursday. His insults sound like they're written by someone in grade 3, who knew that his mom was going to proofread them and ground him if she found any naughty words.
What is the least logical thing Starscream has ever said? It cannot be quantified!
Shockwave's roast wasn't that much of a success anyway. Starscream gets mad and tries to shoot Thundercracker but misses and hits Skyfire, so I guess none of this really mattered anyway. Man, they planted all the seeds for this story to go in, and then they just didn't do it. The Decepticons have their sturdy steel and build their laser cannon again, and Megatron congratulates Starscream and Thundercracker for screwing up their betrayal so badly that they accidentally did something right. Megs plans to try and reprogram Skyfire so that he'll be a Decepticon, even though he's only really been an Autobot for like 24 hours max if you don't count his time encased in ice. But as the Decepticons start to play with their new gun, Bumblebee, Spike, and that Peruvian girl that Spike is desperately trying not to obviously check out, shows up and finds Skyfire. Spike gets to work on fixing him, but Ravage followed them in and does what he does best, completely overpower bots that are far bigger than him. Skyfire is fixed and he tosses Ravage away and takes to the sky. The Autobots charge up the mountain to attack the Decepticons, but since Megatron hit that satellite out in space, he is now a crack shot and able to gun down and execute every Autobot, one by one. I'm just kidding, he misses every shot. Save for one that hits Ironhide, but that actually winds up not being that big a deal. And Brawn charges up to the temple and tackles Starscream, who fumbles backwards and crashes into Megatron. Skyfire swoops in and destroys the new cannon, and the Crystal of Power as well. Prime tosses Megatron off the temple, and he orders a retreat, and Thundercracker throws in another of those geeky lines again. That's okay, Megatron already has another plan. He's going to capture the raw energy of the Loch Ness Monster's farts and convert them into a super weapon. Can't wait. Wheeljack's latest invention is a lid to keep the power of the temple in now that the crystal has been destroyed. Everyone seems skeptical that it won't work, but it really was just a lid.
And like Tupperware, it's a lifetime guarantee.
And then the Autobots light the place up and hooray, the good guys win. And for some reason, the Peruvian girl becomes oddly invested in Bumblebee's sex life and wants him to hook up with her brother's convertible. She even shows him some topless photos of her. Gasp! Fire on the Mountain is all rather silly. It does have some elements I like, including Starscream and Thundercracker's feud, as well as Skyfire being brought out of his icy tomb and being brought back into the series properly. But there's a lot of pointless back and forth of flying to Peru and back. Mostly there is a curious choice to make Brawn the main Autobot protagonist, except he's only the protagonist in that he has the most amount of scenes. He doesn't really propel the action, he has no discernible character arc of his own. He's just put into situations and then survives them, despite his best efforts to get himself killed. At the beginning, he's an impulsive, arrogant lunatic, and at the end, he's basically the same, except he managed to do something right by tackling Starscream. And the Starscream and Thundercracker feud storyline doesn't really go anywhere. It just kind of fizzles out, with Thundercracker making more comments about Starscream being geeky, and I don't know, it just doesn't seem to work. It doesn't land properly. So I'm going to give Fire on the Mountain 1.5 out of 5. It's a watchable episode, but I guess my main complaint, though, is that this whole concept is just not good. They're harvesting ancient powers from a Mayan temple, and we're given little to no explanation how these ancient ones managed to harvest the powers of the Earth core. And that sure didn't help them when the Spaniards came around. What? Too soon?